Hi there and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be continuing with the series of things you should look out for when buying a property in Portugal, most especially a rural Portuguese property. So the next thing you should pay attention to when you're buying a property, especially if you have a car, would be, is there a garage available? Maybe if it's in the permanent city, it could be an underground garage, but if it's in a rural area, it really should be a garage that you own yourself. It has a door, etc., etc. I have a neighbour who has a huge house. It's like a 5-bedroom house, like 400 square meters, and he doesn't have a garage. He never built one. It was never on the plan. He just parks his car outside in the sun. Now, that isn't good here because in Portugal the sun is really, really strong. If you're walking around in a Portuguese city or something, you'll notice that there are a lot of older cars. There you see cars that are like 15 years old, 20 years old quite routinely. And the paint is usually peeling off of them. And the reason for that is they've been sitting outside in the Portuguese sun in the summertime and they have been basically blistered by this. So, if you've got a car, especially if it's a nice one, you'll want to park it in a garage of some kind. So it's something to consider when buying a property, especially if it's a house. Do you have a garage, or at least do you have the capacity to get planning permission to build a garage? Because it's really something that you should have, A, for the car and B, for storage. I think that this is something that people also don't consider when they buy a property. Is they think about how many bedrooms do they need and stuff, but they never think about, like, I'm going to get all this stuff and then where am I going to put it? Because almost inevitably people accumulate things, throughout their lives. They order things and stuff like that. My wife does it all the time. Where the hell does it go? If you want your house to look nice, you've only got a limited amount of storage space probably in a lot of houses. So that's something to pay attention to, and the garage really, really helps out with that. You can put these kind of racks in the garage and you can store lots of stuff in there, which is what I've done with stuff like laundry detergent and toilet roll and all that kind of bulky stuff. It just lives in the garage on racks, and it's very, very convenient to have that. The next thing is a financial thing, and it is IMI, which is the Portuguese equivalent of council tax in the UK, or I suppose property tax in the US. It's levied annually. The person who owns the property on the 31st of December each year is liable to pay it, and it's paid in arrears. Now, people maybe don't know, I'm not sure, that when you buy a property in Portugal, you can actually get a holiday from IMI. You get an exemption for 3 years. So you don't have to pay IMI for 3 years, which is very, very nice. As long as you make less than 150,000 euros per year, which I think will probably be the majority of people. If you buy a property which has a registered value, a tax valuation of 125,000 euros or less, then you will automatically qualify for this 3-year exemption. Now, a lot of properties have a valuation registered at the tax office anyway of less than 125,000 euros, simply because tax values in Portugal are quite frequently a third of the market price of the property or thereabouts. So if you can take advantage of this, could save you well over 1,000 euros over the course of 3 years, and it's worth thinking about. So when you're buying a property, ask them, what is the actual registered tax value of the property, because you might be able to take advantage of that. And it's an extra saving which you can think about when you're calculating how much to pay for the property. Point number 3 for this video, and it's really applicable to central Portugal in a massive way, but other areas of Portugal too, even north, up near Aveiro and those kind of places were afflicted by it this year, and that's forest fires. 2024 was pretty bad for forest fires in Portugal. It's not quite at the level it had been, before, but still, forest fires are a clear and present danger in Portugal, and it's something which you have to take seriously. So when you're buying a property, especially if it's in a rural area, please check for a history of forest fires in the area. Which area is burned? Was there any forest fire near to your property? Anything like that. Because If there have been forest fires in the past, it's likely that they could recur because obviously the environmental conditions in that area perhaps are suitable for fires to break out. So, it's a consideration. Forest fires are horrible. They seldom actually reach houses and totally destroy them, and you can of course get insurance, but just the thought of having to evacuate your home or dealing with smoke damage and everything being dirty and stuff. I've lived in an apartment once which was near another apartment that had a small fire, and there was just hideous quantities of smoke, and it made like the ceiling dirty in my house and things. So you just don't want to be anywhere near that. It's dangerous, it's inconvenient, it's foul. If there have been forest fires in the area, or if it's an area which is considered high risk, then you might want to consider whether you should make an offer for a property like that, or are there better, safer options for you available? Alright, so the next thing, swimming pools. Now, I don't have a swimming pool in Portugal, and I'm unusual because most of my neighbours do have swimming pools. However, we both use our swimming pool about the same amount. I don't have one at all, and they have one, and they don't use it. And the reason that they don't use it is because most of the year it's too cold to use a swimming pool in central Portugal. Very, very few people here actually make use of their pools. So it's something that you have to think about, like, do you want to pay for a pool? Because it's not Thailand. It's not Malaysia or someplace like that. You might be able to get a good amount of use out of the pool for, a month, a year or something here. But even in the peak of the summer, I have neighbours that say it's just too cold to go in the pool. So, you have to make your own choice about that. Of course, you could buy a pool water heater, but that's going to cost you a fortune in Portugal to install it, and then, of course, to run it. It's totally up to you, but you're going to pay a premium for a pool because, houses with pools sell for more. So you have to consider whether that's actually going to be worth it, if you're going to make use of the pool or not. And if your house doesn't have a pool, because resale of a home with a pool for some bizarre reason is so much better, you might want to consider planning permission possibilities for a pool, because even though I don't use a pool now, when I'm selling this property, if I sell this property, I would definitely go and get planning permission for a pool so that I could sell it with that permission, because I think that would be impactful on the sales price. So that's something else to think about. If there is no pool, can you get permission for one, even if you don't want to have one yourself? Alright, next up is internet availability. You really want to have fibre internet, you want to have broadband. There are companies like Mayo and Nosh that provide this in Portugal, and it's actually okay. Maybe a little bit overpriced, but it's okay if you're with their fibre service. Even some of their packages with fibre are pretty decent. What you don't want is you don't want satellite. You don't want Mayo satellite or Nosh satellite. People hate them around here because in the zone where I live, most of the houses don't have fibre. One or two do, but most of them don't. They all depend on satellite. And whether it's Mayo, which tends to be really hated, or Nosh, which is hated quite a bit, but not quite as bad as Mayo, it's still not good. You don't want to be left with satellite internet if you can possibly avoid it. So try to look for places that offer you a fibre optic connection. If you can't get that and the property is in the perfect location and you really love it, there's always Starlink, which is what I have. It is a bit more expensive and it doesn't come with like TV packages or something like that, but it is a great service. So I'm not saying that fibre optic internet is a make or break thing, but it's something to be considered. Definitely it's nice to have. And lastly for this video, it's kind of neighbours again, but this time specifically expats. I'm an English-speaking expat and I have a lot of friends and they're all English-speaking expats, apart from my immediate neighbour who is from Belgium, but he's also English speaking. So, the communities around here tend to speak English if they're foreigners, and there's not so much socialization that occurs between the expats and the Portuguese. It doesn't really go much beyond like, hi, how are you, bom dia, or whatever. It's friendly for sure, but it's not close. So I think it's something that you would want to consider if you are an expat, particularly if you're not like fluent in Portuguese. You might find it difficult to make friends with Portuguese people and integrate into their social groups. So if you want to have friends and social activities, like for example me, I go to like the quiz night and I play bridge with the local expats and things like that. For activities of that nature, you really need to have a local expat community. So it's something to focus on when you're purchasing a house. You have here in the Algarve, obviously you're going to be surrounded by so many Brits, it's unbelievable. But when you come to central Portugal, if you choose like to live in a village or something, or it's the north of Portugal and it's in a town, there might not be that many expats there. It's something that you should check out maybe before you move in, just to make sure that there's going to be like enough basis of a community there for you to have some kind of social interaction, at least if that's important to you. Alright, well that brings us to the conclusion of the second part in this series. I'll get on with making the third, and I will see you soon in the next video.